I'm gonna get this old busted tile out with just using hand tools. I got some power tools that would do this probably a lot faster, but I want to keep the dust down. Just get some hand tools out and take my time. I do have a grout scraping tool. This thing here, it's missing a screw that holds it to the handle there. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Um, Even with the screw in there holding it together, I think it would be slow going, so I'm not going to use that. This is a scoring tool, mostly for Formica or aluminum. Has a pretty wide carbide tip on it, about an eighth of an inch wide, and it's actually ripping this grout out of here pretty quick. Just be careful around the adjacent tile. You stay away from that edge as much as possible, but you still have to get the stuff out of there. So a small flathead screwdriver, you can dig it out that way. Probably take a while, but like I said, this is not a race. You want to be careful. I got a beat 'em up wood chisel. I'll probably use it at some point. Uh, the um, the scoring tool wins. That thing works pretty good. I'm going to overshoot the corners a little bit and just be careful around the adjacent tiles and just rake that through there until you get uh, all or most of the grout out. And then that's old crappy screwdriver. I'm going to take advantage of the crack that's already in here and loosen up some of these broken pieces. And just take your time uh, with the whole thing, but getting started more so than anything. You don't want to be in a big hurry and then damage some of the other tiles. So we get a couple of these busted pieces out of here and maybe graduate to a bigger tool. Probably yeah, it looks like it's stuck pretty good. I got a beat 'em up chisel. Just a crappy wood chisel that I use for beating on stuff. I'm gonna put the bevel side down so you don't dig into the underlayment too much. Just beat on it and try to get some pieces to pop out. It's stuck. Seems to be stuck really well. Like I said, we're just gonna make a bigger hole here to hopefully get a bigger tool in here. I think you're going to have to use a cold chisel for sure. I mean, you could use a chisel. It's going to take forever doing that. Um, so get the cold chisel in here, which is made for brick and tile and concrete and that kind of stuff. Um, and try to get some bigger pieces out. I started working on this, and the under part of the underlayment's coming with it. Looks like HardieBacker underlayment or a fibrous equivalent to some kind. I think it's probably HardieBacker, but cold chisels going to be the way to go. Beat 'em up wood chisel, maybe for some cleanup around the edges. I'm going to take that cold chisel and there again, put the bevel side down so it doesn't dig into the underlayment, which it's pulling pieces of it up anyways, but I'm going to try to minimize that a little bit. So after I get it all out, I'm going to go around, got the big pieces out, I go around and clean up the rest of the thin set and stuff. There again, you could use this chisel and whatever you have, but you're going to woody woodpecker this thing to death. So I'm going to probably use a bigger, that cold chisel probably going to be the way to get this off. The rest of it, and then I got down to the nail. I could see the nail heads, so I know I'm about down far enough. But like I said, with chunks of the underlayment coming with it, it's kind of hard to judge. That small screwdriver, I'm going to get the rest of the grout off of the adjacent tile. Kind of looks like I'm beating on the edge of that, which I'm not. I actually have the tip of the screwdriver angled in towards where I'm working, and it's actually not even touching that edge. It's kind of hard to see, but you still got to get all that stuff off of there. So once I got everything cleaned off, dry fit the tile, and I noticed it's wobbling in there, so I got a high spot. I'll have to pull it out and um, clean it off some more. Like I said, just be careful dropping this tile in and out too, because you could chip the edge of those other tiles. So I cleaned that off again a couple of times, dry fit it a couple of times. See there, you can see the nail heads on the underlayment. Just want to make sure those are all, I caught a couple of those heads with my chisel, so I just want to make sure they're not sticking up. And then take a wet sponge, not soaking wet, but wet enough to dampen the underlayment so it doesn't suck all the moisture out of the thin set too quick. And it's also getting the rest of any dust, little chunks of debris or whatever out of there. And then we'll put the bed of thin set in there. I got a 3/8 by 1/4 inch notch trowel, and then I buttered the back of this tile a little bit. I didn't put a ton of mud on there because I didn't really need a ton. I know it's going to connect good. And then just squish your tile in there. I'm kind of dealing with somewhat of an uneven floor here. Whoever laid this floor didn't do the greatest job, but it's, it's okay, I guess. But you got to kind of match what's here. So get that set in real good, and then wipe off any excess thin set, dust, that kind of stuff, so it doesn't set up on the surface. And then after that sets up, you put your grout in. Just make sure you squish it in there real good. Make sure those cavities are full. I'm overshooting the corners a little bit. I'm going to feather those out. It has some little bit of cracking and whatnot. So I'm going to feather out the corners. Get all the grout in there. Make sure, like I said, just make sure it's the joints are full. And then when you come back, you can wipe any excess off. So we'll get all the major piles off of the floor here, and then we'll wipe it down with a sponge and some cold water in a bucket so you can rinse it out. So after you get, like I said, just make sure those joints are full. Even if they're overflowing, that's okay, because you're going to come back and wipe it a few times. This first one, I'm just going to scrub, basically scrub the joint. That's just making sure they're full, wiping off any big chunks of excess, and then I'm going to take that sponge and feather out the corners to the adjacent tiles, and get the bulk of the your grout off the tile, and make sure your joints are smooth. And then we'll let that set up a little bit, and then probably wipe it down a couple more times. And then afterwards, it'll haze up on you, and you can tell when it's kind of dry. So just clean it up. Like I said, you're gonna have to wipe it a couple of times. Clean it up real good. And then if there's any haze on it, when you're all done, you can just take a dry towel and just kind of buff it off. Like I said, I made sure I went around to the corners and want to feather those out real good. Make sure this is super clean. Yeah, that's about all I got to say about that. So hope that helps, and let me know if you got any questions.